lies the body of Mary Lee died at the age of 103. For 15 years, she kept her virginity. Not a bad record for this vicinity.
I can't, you guys. I can't.
No, you're not listening to a pirate show. This is Spooky Chicks and Horror Flicks, hosted by Emma.
Are you, though? I'm Allie. I know that much.
Okay, that was a quote, an ad-libbed quote, I believe, from Jaws, said by Mr. Quint.
You did amazing, sweetie. We're proud of you.
You know, I was like, I'm going to start with the Quint monologue, and I don't care what anyone says, and I'm glad I did it. It feels good.
I'm happy for you.
Anyways, hi guys. If you are not familiar with the podcast, we are two best friends who like to talk about horror movies and we like to drink while doing so. Another thing too is that we have a TikTok and an Instagram that you can find us at Spooky Chicks and Horror Flicks. We also have a Patreon where you can get access to some bonus stuff like behind the scenes content, be part of our book club. You can get a little card and a sticker from us, a personal little note. So join us if you wish. Allie, do you want to tell us what film we are reviewing today?
I shall, because I'm a shanty too. Today we're reviewing the 1975 Jaws. Jaws. This is an iconic film. Obviously, we all know what this is. Hopefully, if you don't, I don't know how to help you. But
you might be too far gone at that point.
Yeah. Or protected. Maybe you like the ocean more than I do now. But spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this and you don't want to be spoiled, then go rent it. I think I rented it on YouTube.
Oh, you can watch it on Peacock for free.
Shit.
But you know what? You have options.
Okay, well, anyways, go watch it somewhere. Or if you don't give a fuck, listen along on this boat ride with us fuckers. And speaking of sharks, Emma, what have you been up to?
I No, oh my God, I didn't mean to actually go full pirate. I have had a very busy last couple weekends. I celebrated one of my best friend, Kenny. Her bridal shower was this weekend. I also got to go to the San Diego County Fair with the producer, and we had a blast with our friends, Kaylee and David. And what else did I do? Oh, I also celebrated my best friend's birthday. Shout out to Erica. Had a very fun-filled weekend. And I'm also very excited that I am going to a Little Shop of Horrors event with the producer this upcoming weekend as well. So I think this episode comes out on July 4th. So if any of you are going to be at the Little Shop of Horrors in Orange County, please hit us up on Instagram. But Allie, what have you been up to?
Well, that all sounds very lovely and I'm jealous. It's been my biggest takeaway from this recent week is it's so hot. It's so hot.
So hot. I've been so sweaty.
Makes you want to go into the water, huh?
Maybe a nice pool.
Yeah, a pool.
Not the ocean. I'm kind of scared. My dad wants to go to the beach this weekend. I'm like, I don't know.
Also, like we said, 4th of July is this coming week. And for those of you who don't know, I fucking love 4th of July. So I will be up north in California for a family reunion. And I'm excited. I was told that I can't bring sparklers on a plane. So if anybody else wants to weigh in on if that's factual, please tell me.
I would wait and maybe try to get those on the ground when you get there somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of sparklers, what are you drinking?
Today, I am drinking a nice whiskey down at the bottom of the barrel.
You're not Quint.
What do you mean? Just kidding. I'm drinking a twisted tea. I'm getting twisted. What are you drinking, Allie?
Well, now I know that we both need sponsorships. Me from White Claw, you from Twisted Tea, obviously. Because I am drinking my 3 beverage minimum is a White Claw. I have a Harmless Harvest, and I'm drinking water from my Big Dumb cup.
She got a beautiful Big Dumb pink cup that matches our brand logo with the colors and slapped our sticker on there, and it looks fabulous.
It does look fabulous, and tell us if you guys want that in our merch store when we launch it.
Yeah, that's coming soon. Coming soon.
But hey, happy summer and fucking cheers.
Cheers. All right, so let's get naked and start dipping our toes into the film Jaws here. The producer and Allie are looking at me. You're welcome. I'm really bringing it today when it comes to the comedic relief. Allie, am I doing okay?
You're doing great, sweetheart.
So, for the synopsis of the film, when a killer shark unleashes chaos on a beach community off Cape Cod, it's up to a local sheriff, a marine biologist, and an old seafarer to hunt the beast down. And this film got an 8.1 out of 10 on IMDb, which I definitely agree with. And Allie's face is indicating to me that she has some other thoughts. So I'm excited to dig into those.
Well, yeah, the tomato meter was 97%.
That is high.
That might be our highest one. Like,
That we've done so far.
yes,
Yeah.
that's insane. And the audience score was 90%. And I'm like, who the fuck is, I mean, I know it's an iconic film, but like, damn,
70s films just hit.
they do hit.
70s shark film, it be hitting.
Okay.
You know?
It'd be slapping.
It be slapping.
It'd be chawing.
And I think it also goes to say, too, that there's probably also an effect that comes along with this being directed by Steven Spielberg. I mean, he is the producer of literal blockbuster films. He might have coined the term just with his work. So something to be mentioned there. And then this film was also written by Peter Benchley, who actually published the novel that inspired this film. So that was pretty cool. And Carl Gottlieb. So those are kind of like our two little writers there.
Our two little writers. Okay.
Just a little, just typing on their typewriters.
Obviously, we know Steven Spielberg is like so prolific and are like king. But Emma, what is your favorite Steven Spielberg movie?
Oh my God, that is such a tough one. There are so many that I could like list, but I will say my top two favorites: Jurassic Park and Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Nice.
Love that one.
Love it.
Great one. What about you? Oh God, what does this mean?
My two, because you did two, so I get to do two as well. I have quite the spread. So my first one is Catch Me If You Can.
Okay, yeah, love that one too.
I love it. I love it. And my other one is Schindler's List.
That is also such a fucking great film as well. See,
So
there's
good.
so many. Like,
So good.
I could have said that. I also was gonna say E.T. Hello. Like,
Well, yeah.
so good. I mean, there's so many. Raiders of the Lost Ark, Saving Private Ryan. I mean, the
There's
list
so
goes
many.
on, right? I also think it's like kind of sweet that he's like the pseudo like godfather of Drew Barrymore. Like I read her book and she talks a lot about how close they are, even up until her like adulthood.
No, I love it. I love it. I think it's so cute. And I think he's a great filmmaker and probably the best of our one of the best of our time. Speaking of the best of our time, I want to touch on the composer, John Williams, because he is a musical genius.
Yes.
With this movie, he made an iconic score with two notes. Dum-dum, 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 dum-dum. And obviously he was a part of this, but he was also, again, a part of like Home Alone,
Harry Potter,
E.T., Jurassic Park, Star Wars, Indiana Jones. But he also works a lot with Spielberg. So like these all kind of align. But what an iconic crew. We love it.
So good. So
Yeah.
good. The score is so amazing, and having it be so simple, but really eliciting this fear that anyone can hear that to this day. That song is still being used in so many different forms of media, in soundtracks, all kinds of stuff. Like, it's just so wild. So crazy.
Speaking of, Shark Week is coming up. So like, I don't know.
So get ready for that.
Yeah.
You know, and then some of our like leading people that we have, first and foremost, we have our leading man, Roy Scheider.
That tripped me up too. I was like, is it Schneider or is it Strider?
I think it's Scheider. And he plays Sheriff Martin Brody.
I don't remember him from anything else. He was in Jaws too, but I'm also like, is he a daddy?
I don't know if I agree with that, but I'm gonna, you know what? If that's yours of this film, then I have one that's maybe gonna catch you off guard a little bit.
Is it Quint?
It might be. Have
So
you seen his blue eyes?
Okay, speaking of Quint, that is played by Robert Shaw. But in my notes, I also said piercing blue eyes, and that gets me every time.
Ooh, you did have that in your notes.
Yep.
I love that.
So that's your daddy.
That is.
Wow. And then on our next build is Richard Dreyfuss, and he plays Hooper. And
He's fantastic.
Yeah, he's arguably like the most famous person to be in this movie or come out of this movie. He's in Close Encounters. He's in American Graffiti. He's in What About Bob? So also he's the centipede in James and the Giant Peach. Yeah.
I love James and the Giant Peach.
Also, why am I attracted to him in this?
I'm so attracted to him in this.
Okay. Good.
I think there's something about a guy who's like willing to just jump off of a boat and like look at like a shipwreck.
He's funny.
He's funny. He's just cute. He's quirky.
Yeah.
Like
he's not like physically attractive necessarily, but I like. Oh, okay.
Well, I think it's the personality that makes him.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then our last gal that we'll mention is Lorraine Gary, who plays Ellen, and that's Sheriff Brody's wife. And I don't know anything about her, but she's hot.
I literally made note of that several times, that I love her outfit and that she's just like so hot in all of this. Like very, very hot mom.
Like, good for her.
Love her. Anyways, this film opened on June 20th of 1975, which I feel like was like perfect because in the film, they talk very heavily about it being like in preparation for 4th of July weekend. So I feel like this was such a great release time probably back then because it literally got everybody hyped and scared for like the 4th of July weekend.
That's fucked.
And it also takes place in actually a real place, Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. But this was used as the, I believe, fictional town or island, Amity Island. And they found that Martha's Vineyard worked out really well because for about actually up to 12 miles out to sea, the sandy bottom was only 30 feet down. So it really allowed the mechanical shark to work really well underwater.
Isn't Sandy Bottom the character from, or like the town from SpongeBob?
Sandy Cheeks. Bikini, you just put them both together. Bikini Bottom,
A
Sandy
plus
Cheeks.
B equals C.
Yeah.
Okay.
And another thing I thought that was really funny is that some of the residents that lived there were actually paid $64 to scream and run across the beach as extras in some of the beach scenes. I was like, that's amazing. Most of the film was also shot handheld to help best counter the ocean's swell. And you can totally tell when you're watching the film that they really do go with the motion of the ocean, so to speak. And over 67 million people in the US went to see this film when it was initially released in 1975, making it the first summer blockbuster. Another thing, too, I wanted to note is that director Steven Spielberg said that when he first read the novel that he found himself rooting for the shark because the human characters were so unlikable.
Dude, I put in my notes later, I'm like, I'm low-key rooting for the shark. Like, what'd the shark do? I mean, besides kill people.
Yeah, besides like, he's just like hungry.
Yeah.
Someone feed the man.
Seriously.
And Steven Spielberg allegedly shot roughly 25% of the film from water level because he wanted to provide the viewers with the perspective as if they were treading water, which I think they did a really, really good job. I feel like several times in the film, you either feel like you're in the like shark's perspective of sort of seeing everyone in the water, or you're almost like a swimmer yourself, kind of at that ocean level view. And then my last little guy is that the shark in Finding Nemo in 2003 was actually named Bruce, which is supposedly a homage to the shark in Jaws.
Oh, shit.
Isn't that cute? Bruce.
Come on, Bruce.
Fish are friends,
Not food.
Who could forget that? Who could forget that?
I love it.
Allie, do you have any other ones?
Yeah, my dad knows this movie line for line. Shout out to Dave.
So does my dad. Well, and I mean, I'm sure your dad was the same, but my dad said that literally in 75, he went to see it in theaters and people were running out of the theater. They were so scared. And I know there's been so many shark movies that have come after this, but like think about never seeing any of those and then going and seeing this in theaters. Like I would have been terrified.
I was still terrified when I saw it
I mean, yeah, there were definitely like some real scary parts, which we're going to get into. Don't worry. Yes. Okay, Els, I am absolutely chomping at the bit.
Oh, God.
To get into the film now. We start the film with the iconic film score. Dun-na, dun-na.
And it's like the scene is underwater and we're just seeing kelp and rocks and bottom of the ocean. And this triggers me so heavily because, reminder, I hate water and kelp because of this movie.
Yeah, kelp is not fun, I don't think, for anybody. So I feel you there. I definitely agree. But then we get immediately introduced to Chrissy, who is kind of like our first gal, and she's with a group of friends and they're gathering around a like beach bonfire. And Allie, why is there always just something about a bonfire that really brings together horny young people? Like
I mean, it's horny.
Especially ones that are playing guitars and like doing bad things.
They're 10 enough and trying to get laid.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah.
And I low-key want to be at this bonfire.
It does look kind of lovely, doesn't it?
It looks amazing. And this would be my whole jam. And that's why I'm a first girl.
You are Chrissy, I think, in this film.
Oh, shit, you're right.
You are.
Yeah.
100%. And so Chrissy and a young man who we come to find out his name is Tom, they kind of separate from the group. They're like giving each other googly eyes a little bit, like at the fire. And
Also, like, does Tom not look like the jock from Grease?
kind of, but you know what I thought you were going to say, because the producer mentioned it when we watched this, is that he kind of looks like a grown-up Charlie from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, like the original.
Producer, you're right.
Like, it's really scary, and I didn't look it up because I was almost scared of what I would find, to be honest.
That goes to say that's kind of my type. Tom is definitely my type.
Your type.
And so Chrissy and Tom are like, yeah, let's go to the beach, boo, boo, boo. And Tom's like, I'm not drunk. It's cool. I'll just run after you to go to the beach.
Well, he's like intoxicated, and he ends up like passing out on the beach while Chrissy has like, stripped down completely, and she's like going for a little naked swimmerooski.
And I'm like, why are we swimming naked in the ocean? But 70s were a different time.
They really were. And I mean, if it's at night, like I've gone skinny dipping in the ocean at night, like many a time.
So sketch. So sketch.
I mean, I'm not going like really deep like Chrissy. That part is sketch to me. I'm like, girl, you're too trusting.
Good for you.
Well, and as she swims out to like the buoy that they have, those like red buoys that are always in bodies of water, Chrissy is over there like waiting, and she is pulled underwater by something unseen, and we see it kind of like drag her like back and forth across the water and like across the screen as you're like the viewer. But this does nothing but remind me of Ace Ventura when he goes into that like secret aquatic tank area at the really fancy party, because he's trying to investigate the dolphin being stolen. Okay, I'm going too deep into.
I gotta rewatch that movie, I guess.
It's so good. He comes out and his clothes are all ripped up because he's literally been dragged across the water, and he comes out and it's a bathroom is how he got in there. It's like a secret door within the bathroom, and he goes, "Whoo, do not go in there." And it's so freaking funny. Anyways.
So Chrissy's fucked. And the next day we meet Brody and his wife Ellen, and they're getting up and they're like being little cutesy pootsies, and they both kind of seem hungover. Or is that just me?
That might just be you, but I also don't doubt that they're like living in a sleepy beach town that's about to be super fucking busy, and so maybe they just don't get up at the like crack of dawn.
Yeah, it's like a 70s summer, and they're like low-key, like they definitely like had sex the previous night because they're like way too nice to each other to like be normal. And
I love that Ali has all this insight into their behavior.
I'm just saying. But Sheriff Brody, our little Sheriff Daddy Brody, gets a call, and
he's basically like, I gotta go. And so he like just grabs his stuff. He's like, I'll be there in 15 to whoever it was that was like on the phone. And then he gets into his freaking amazing truck.
Dude, I want this truck so badly.
Same. It's a Chevy, and it's sick as hell. And it's like one of those ones that, I don't know, it has extra caging on it or something. And then it says like Amity Police on the side. It looks fucking so cool.
It does not look like a police sanctioned car.
No, it does not.
It's a bitchin' car. And then on the way he passes a huge ass billboard that says "Welcome to Amity," and it's like reflecting a summertime of fun, and it's got like a girl in there with the bikini and talking about the 4th of July ricotta.
Ricotta?
Oh, I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm hungry.
I was like, ooh, ricotta.
That sounds amazing.
That sounds really good.
Regatta, everyone. And then we see Tom, our little boy that I would probably be falling for, meet the Sheriff Brody at the beach, and they're just like awfully calm for somebody they're trying to find somebody who's missing.
Yeah.
Or dead.
Which they kind of start walking down the beach and Tom's like, I just don't know what happened to her, blah, blah, blah. And then we hear like a pretty big, intense like whistle from one of the other deputies who's like already on the beach. And he was the one that called Brody to come. And Chrissy's remains have been discovered. We actually see like an arm kind of sticking out of some like seaweed and crabs. And it's like the first like thing you see. And it's like, whoa, okay.
I thought she looked like a mermaid, but all right.
Well, and according to director Steven Spielberg, actually, the prop arm actually looked too fake in the scene where Chrissy's remains are discovered. So instead, they actually buried a female crew member in the sand with only her arm exposed for this scene.
Oh my gosh. I would volunteer as tribute. That's fun.
Kind of gnarly.
That's cool.
You're like, that's my arm in Jaws.
Oh my gosh. I love that. And during this whole scene, nobody is reacting how I would think they would. They're all way too calm. Do you agree?
I think Tom is maybe too calm. I think Brody and the other like Deputy Hendricks, they're probably like kind of supposed to remain sort of calm in these situations because like that's what they're supposed to be dealing with, right? Like obviously they're not only dealing with deaths as like sheriffs, but they have to be ready once something like that were to come. But I do agree that like Tom, like why is Tom not freaking out? But I don't know.
Is Tom the shark?
Men are also so weird. Tom might be the goddamn shark.
Seriously.
Honestly, we don't see him again after this. We don't know what he's up to.
Yeah. He's in Greece now.
Allie, I think you just fucking opened Pandora's box.
I know. Thank you. I do that a lot. I just want to know why we don't see an ambulance or cops or a medical examiner or anything like that to come examine the body and just see what exactly happened. We don't see that.
I feel like they just skipped over that whole part in the film because then the next thing we see is like they're basically at Brody's like office and he wants to like kind of investigate further. And he's actually on the phone with who I believe is like the medical examiner because then he starts to type out the cause of death as like shark attack, but it's going to come around in a second that they're actually going to change that. But the medical examiner does initially label it as a shark attack. And Brody is like, dude, we got to close these beaches to like prevent further attacks. And he's kind of freaking out. He starts running around town and he can't find beach closed signs. So he basically goes into a store, this cute little ass town of Amity, and gets some arts and crafts to make a new sign.
I thought that was super cute. Like he was like trying to be all like, I'm going to go to Michael's or like Hobby Lobby and make some signs.
Yeah. He's like, I got to let the people know. It was so cute.
And then after that, Brody's on the pier and he's looking out at the water and he sees a bunch of youths swimming in there. And you can tell he's stressed the fuck out because he's like, what if another attack happens?
Totally.
He also smokes a lot. So like maybe don't. He's just like smoking. He's like the sheriff and he's like smoking on the ferry dock, whatever it is.
And then he meets up with the mayor who is named Larry Vaughn. And he also meets up with like a couple other local business owners. And they kind of like pressure Brody. Like they almost like bombard him on this like ferry thing that they want to keep the beaches open for this like lucrative 4th of July weekend that's about to happen.
And I'm like, okay, I get it. You're the mayor and you want the infrastructure. Is that the right word?
And the tourism and like all of the like economy for your little like town.
But people have been attacked and the mayor is still just like, fuck that. And I'm like, this is dirty politics.
100%.
He's like basically making Brody be a dirty cop.
And doesn't he say to him too, he's like, this is my first summer being the mayor.
Yes.
Like, basically, don't ruin this shit for me.
Yeah, literally, yeah.
Which is so crazy. Well, and you can just tell, like, the mayor is like 100% trying to cover this incident up so that tourism doesn't suffer. And he kind of convinces the medical examiner to change the cause of death to a boating accident so that they can just keep the beaches open. Like,
how the fuck wouldn't you want your children and your family to be safe?
It's crazy.
Especially for those of you who don't know, we have a lot of sharks here in California right now.
Oh my God, yeah, we have a ton. There have been a lot of sightings, which that's where they live, people. Sorry.
The water?
The ocean.
Yeah.
And then I do have a little quote from the producer that he said while we were watching the film that I just had to throw in here. The whole town is coming to Brody with issues, but he's got bigger fish to fry.
Love it.
Ain't that the truth? You should write cards for Hallmark. And then later that day at a nearby swimming beach, so there's like a ton of people there, and we see like a mother and son, and they're on the sand. And Alex, the young son, is like asking his mom if he can go back into the water. And she's like, okay, you can go back in for 10 more minutes. There's also some other families kind of swimming around and people are there like having fun. Sheriff Brody is also there with his family, and they're all at the beach too. And he's kind of watching everyone with definitely like some anxiety for another attack that might happen.
I'm also like, in light of all these activities, why are you at the beach with your family and instead of trying to solve a problem? And I'm like, I get it. Everybody needs a break. And he also lets his kid out into the water. And I'm like,
I totally thought the same thing, Els. I'm like, you let your fucking kids in after this just happened?
I'm like,
oh my God.
Maybe don't do that after there's been a fucking shark attack.
Yeah, maybe don't.
And then some old dude who I actually love, I don't know if you guys clocked him, but
yes, I know what you're talking about.
He was just like an old dude. He comes up to Brody and he's like,
he's got a swim cap on with like his like saggy man boobs and but he's like a little cutie.
But he's lovable.
Yeah, he's lovable.
To Sheriff Brody, he's like, oh, you never go in the water, huh? And there's nothing more than that. I just love this guy. But that's our first indication that Sheriff Brody hates the water. And I'm like, same girl.
I actually love the water, but that's like a totally different subject.
She thinks her life is Blue Crush.
It is.
It's
It
a
actually
different
is.
story.
I don't think it, Allie. I live it every day.
Okay.
Every goddamn day. Also, one other note here is that Ellen is a hottie.
She's so hot.
Brody's wife. I know we mentioned this already, and I'm going to keep mentioning it. She's so cute in her little black one piece and her straw hat at the beach, giving Brody a little back rub. She's like, you've been stressed. Like,
Girlfriend be living her own life. I'm like, what's your job? If you don't have one, that's even more amazing. Like, get your manicure, do your hair, and wear that swimsuit.
And
get
be
that tan.
chic.
Be chic.
Be chic. She is shark chic, if you know what I mean.
Oh, God.
Well, and then, like I said, there's still a lot of other people here at this beach too. A lot of families playing, and there is a guy, and he is playing with his dog Pippin. He's like ends up like looking for his dog, and it's so sad because like the dog seems to have just like totally disappeared. And I should also note too that kid Alex from the beginning that asked his mom if he could swim 10 more minutes, he went out on his raft, and we actually see him like start to scream and thrash, and we basically see him get like really brutally attacked by the shark.
We just see a volcano of blood and guts. How is this happening?
Well, and then at the same time, one of my favorite small things happens in this film, and it's for 2 seconds, but they do this epic zoom in on Sheriff Brody's face. It's like push out, zoom in, or push in, zoom out. Either one. But yeah, I love this like look on Sheriff Brody's face of panic. It is so anxiety inducing, and like one of the scariest things that I think if I saw it in 1975, I'd be like, oh shit. And then everybody panics and gets out of the water. It is so sad because Alex's mom kind of goes slightly into the water looking for Alex, and she's like frantically looking for him. And we see his bloody raft wash ashore. So then after this whole shark attack with little baby Alex, sorry, Alex, we are now at the sheriff's office / town hall. It's not super like clear. They might all be the same place. Who knows? This is a small town. But Alex's mother has put up a $3,000 award or reward, not an award, for the capture of the shark that killed her son. And a chaotic town meeting kind of starts to ensue. And it's basically being held just to like discuss this entire shark threat and the the reward that Alex's mother put up. And the townspeople kind of start arguing about the situation because it's also like a matter of closing beaches and all of this stuff. And so there's a lot that goes into it. The mayor says that they are only going to close for 24 hours, which it's so funny because like you think as the viewer that it's not that long, but then someone else is like,
oh my gosh, 24 hours is like 3 weeks in beach time. And I'm like, bitch, do you want to live or do you want to die?
For real. I'm like, 24 hours? That is crazy. That is so short. Like, that's really not even a beach closure.
I could sleep for 24 hours if you wanted me to.
No, 100%. And then as they're all arguing and all this is happening, we see Quint, who is a local fisherman. He starts scratching his nails on the chalkboard, and it sort of disrupts everything. And then all focus is like on him. And he's drawn a shark, or someone has drawn a shark on this chalkboard, like eating a person, which I thought was a fun little detail. And then Quint actually offers to catch the shark, but he's not going to do it for 3K. He is insisting that he will do it for 10,000 because it is a very serious threat and that basically they're not taking it seriously. He says, I will find the shark for 3K, but if you want me to catch and kill him, it'll be 10,000.
Homie's just literally, I don't need your help. I just need your money. And he's way more confident than Sheriff Brody.
Absolutely. Well, and then after the meeting, some of the deputies actually do end up putting up those closed beach signs. And we see Brody and Ellen, and they're kind of back at their home now. And I love this part because she literally says, want to get drunk and fool around? And I'm like, dude, I just love Ellen. She is so chic and cool.
No, literally, I am her, she is me, we are we. And that was actually ad-libbed by the actress.
I cannot believe that Roy Scheider did not bust up laughing because I think I would have if I was in his place.
Well, he was probably like, oh, shit.
She's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then outside of their house, Brody yells at his son because they actually live in very close proximity to some water, like another part of like the beach, and is like, get out of the boat right now, get out. And he's not even really in it. He's just sitting in the boat that they have docked.
I'm also curious, like, why do they have a boat if Brody is so fucking afraid of water? And it's a little dinghy. It's like not a big boat. It's like not a real boat. It's like a little tiny baby boat.
His sons are probably just into it, but he's like, nah, I'm good.
I'm also, why did you move here? I don't get it.
Yeah, we didn't really mention it at the beginning, but they kind of indicate that they're from like New York and that they've like moved here. Maybe Sheriff Brody got like I keep calling him sheriff, but he is a chief, I guess. So maybe he got sort of a like promotion and then they made him like move here because they do kind of go back and forth and talk about New York like a couple times throughout the film.
I'm also like, their house is super gorge and I would love to live there / hate it because the water scares me, but their house is giving me like practical magic vibes.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking like Lemony Snicket.
Oh, that's scarier.
That's very scary. Well, and then later that evening / kind of like early morning, we actually see two random fishermen trying to be out on the water and like baiting this shark, kind of getting like a head start almost of this bounty for the $3,000 they might get if they catch it.
They have one of those hooks. Do you know what they call that hook? Like they have this in, I know we did last summer. It's like a fisherman's hook, but
that might be just what it's called. Yeah, just those hooks.
Those hooks.
The hooks.
The big fish hooks.
The ones that you could kill people with.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You know? Well, but they basically tie a piece of bait to the end of a dock, and one of the fishermen ends up falling in the water because the shark took the bait and pulled the dock and the chain with it.
How the fuck did the shark pull that dock away? Are sharks that really like powerful? Oh, producer says
Bruce
yes.
is.
Bruce is.
Have you seen him?
He's a big boy.
He's 3 tons of lovin'.
And so basically he pulls that dock away and then he's like dragging it around and then all of a sudden he releases it somehow. I don't know how. And then it floats up to shore.
Well, and the fisherman also narrowly makes it back onto the part of the dock that didn't fall off with his other fisherman friend before the shark comes back to basically eat him.
And then the next morning, we see a bunch of fishermen go out and try to get the shark again. Everybody's like trying to get this fucking shark.
It's what you would call maybe a witch hunt?
Or a clusterfuck.
Okay. Yeah, either one.
Yeah. And in this clusterfuck, I love this scene actually. It's a bunch of people in the town. And one of the main shots is a little old man with this cute ass little outfit, smoking his little pipe tobacco.
Oh, yeah, I remember him.
Holding his little snacks. And he's just got a huge smile on. And I'm just like, yes, I don't know why Steven Spielberg put this in there, but like, I'm obsessed. And then we cut to a frantic Hendrix and Brody.
And then we get an introduction to Hooper, played by Richard Dreyfuss, which we talked about earlier. And he arrives and is trying to kind of look for and meet Chief Brody. And Brody kind of ignores him at first. And it's just like, it's a very hectic area, right? So he's like trying to like maneuver through people and all of these things. It's pretty funny.
When I first saw this, I was like, okay, he has fashion. He's wearing a little Canadian tuxedo.
Little cutie.
With a little beanie. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure we dress the same.
Well, and then they actually find out that there are fishermen, not just from the town here, but there are fishermen from like all over the place in neighboring states, like in like Rhode Island and like Jersey, New York, that are all like coming for this bounty.
And I just keep getting confused. Like, for some reason, when Brody finds out who Hooper is, he's like, you're the guy. You're the one from like what is it called? Like
I think the Oceanographic Institute.
That's a hard word to say, and
I put it in my notes as Oceanography Institute because that just rolls off the tongue better.
Okay. It's gonna be a hard one for me. But when he learns that's who Hooper is, he's like, oh, can you help me get these yahoos out of the boats because it's a clusterfuck out there? And Hooper's like, brothers, get out of the boats. Let's save some lives. You don't need to be in there. And they don't take his advice. And Hooper walks away just kind of very confidently being like, they're all going to die.
Well, and then Hooper kind of then officially introduces himself to Brody, and he's from the Oceanography Institute, and he's like there to kind of help with like this situation. And so Brody kind of realizes, oh, this is like the guy that I called or I've like kind of employed to help with this whole shark shenanigans. And they actually, it's kind of weird, but their first like order of business together, Hooper and Brody, is to go and examine the body of Chrissy, the very first victim. And Hooper weirdly knows a lot about like autopsying because he's like with the medical examiner and Brody, and he's basically doing like a recording, like a self-recording of everything that he's finding. And you can tell that he really knows his way around like anatomy and things like that. And he explains to Hooper very, very conclusively that this was no boat accident.
But he's like, did you not tell the Coast Guard about this incident? What the fuck's going on? And Hooper's visibly shook, but keeps going with the examination. And he also fucking calls out Brody for smoking in the examination room. And I'm like, go off, King. And he's now like mad because he knows that this is like a shark attack. And he's like, you dumbass fucks. Like, why? This was obviously a shark attack.
Like he almost looks at Brody with, you guys tried to cover this up, didn't you? Type of thing.
Why aren't we going after the mayor more?
Dude, right?
Okay.
I have qualms about that guy.
Same.
But back at the dock, one of the fishermen actually thinks that they might have caught the shark, the one that supposedly maybe ate Chrissy and Alex. And everyone kind of starts to like celebrate, even Brody, honestly.
Brody's literally celebrating the fuck out of it. And he's like, he looks so excited to tell Hooper. And I'm like, okay, you guys are best friends already. That's very nice. But there's like a moment where the press is like, let's get a picture. And they're like, fuck yeah, let's capture this content and put the beaches are closed sign behind like the hanging tiger shark. Cause they obviously have captured it and hung it as they do. I don't know. We don't live on a coastal New England town.
So let us know.
But they're like Instagram ready.
They are ready to get the shot.
Yeah.
Well, and I actually have a fun fact here that the shark that was killed apparently in this film was actually a real shark that was killed in Florida. And because there wasn't a big enough one in Martha's Vineyard for them to use. And according to Carl Gottlieb's The Jaws log, by the time it had been shipped to set and was prepared for filming, it was actually starting to decompose pretty badly and the smell was horrible. And as it hung up from its tail, its internal organs started to break loose and piled up in the back of its throat, adding to like the discomfort of those forced to work like in really close proximity of it, which I thought was crazy.
That sucks.
I know. And then back to the film, Hooper actually argues that this is likely not the shark. And he's pretty sure about it. And he doesn't have like exact reasoning just yet, but he's like, I'm pretty positive like that's not the one because like the diameter of the bite is like not close at all to what he saw on Chrissy's body. He kind of asks Brody and he sort of broaches with the mayor, like, I would really like to cut this shark open and just to see if there's like human remains in its stomach so that they can like confirm.
And mayor is like, nah, brah, we're not doing an autopsy on this pier. And I'm like, this mayor kind of sucks heavily. And let's not reelect him. Okay.
I agree, but I will say that the mayor in this case, though, I do think was kind of right. I think he was wrong in saying that they couldn't cut the shark open, but I do think he was right in saying not right there on the pier. Because like if it really was the little boy's body like in there, and then to have that body, that would just be not a great look. But I still think he should have let them do it like privately behind closed doors.
Okay. I actually agree with you.
You hate to say that?
Yes.
Well, you are my best friend, so you can agree with me sometimes.
Yes,
It's
I
okay.
can.
Can we just talk about like how cute Richard Dreyfuss was in this part as well?
Oh my gosh. I don't know what I'm feeling. You know?
Are you having feelings?
I'm having feelings.
Okay, anyways, moving on. As this is all like happening on the dock, Mrs. Kittner, Alex's mom, she's like in black garb, like having maybe just come from Alex's little funeral ceremony or something. She comes and like confronts Brody. And
She's got her full ass like Helena outfit on. She's got her like
Yes, she
veil,
does.
like her hat, her black hat and her veil, and she comes guns a-blazing.
Guns a-blazing. Yeah. And she accuses Brody of not doing enough basically to prevent her son's death. And she smacks him. And I didn't put it in my notes, but I did read a fun fact that she could not execute a fake slap on Roy Scheider. And so they did like 17 takes and she had to actually slap him in order for them to get the right one.
I mean, you got to get the shot, right? So do it. Also, she calls him Martin, and I'm not sure if I know I'm dumb, but I think this was the first instance where we hear that his name is Martin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's his first name.
Yeah.
I know. They don't say it a lot in the film. Honestly, they just call him Brody most of the time. But yeah, his first name is Martin. So you know it's serious when people are calling him that.
Yeah. When my mom calls me Allison, I'm like, oh shit. Like what?
But then later that night, Hooper, and I love this part, but Hooper randomly, it seems, just shows up to the Brody residence. And he's like kind of dressed up, like literally wearing a little cute little sport coat and a tie. And he brings 2 bottles of wine and just like shows up. What are we celebrating? Because I want to be there.
And he brings a red and a white. So like,
Which I love.
he's considerate.
He's so considerate.
I
He
love
can
it.
come to our party anytime.
Honestly, yes. With his little beanie and his little Canadian tuxedo.
Specifically in that. Allie is holding on to that.
I am.
And Ellen kind of even joins in on this little fun between Hooper and Brody, and they're kind of like talking at the table, getting acquainted. And he kind of tells her a little bit more about his shark experience, and he's being really light with it at first. Like he says everything that he's been through and the things that he's done. And then he very seriously says, well, I have to go back to the Oceanography Institute and tell them that Amity is still a shark problem. And she's kind of like, wait, what? What do you mean? And he basically says, like, you caught a shark, but not the shark.
But during all this conversation, the wife basically kind of goes into why Brody's always hated boats and hates water and he's afraid of drowning. And they kind of bring up that most shark attacks happen 10 feet off the shore and under 3 feet of water. And I'm like, what the fuck? That is way too close. And the sharks will feed in that same area until the food supply has dwindled. And I'm like, where's our urgency here? Like, let's get more scared about it.
100%. But I do think Brody kind of gets to a point in that conversation where he's like, you know what, fuck it. He goes, why don't we have one more drink and go cut that thing open? Which I love.
I'm like, bring the drinks with you, dude.
I think they do.
Oh, great. I love it.
Well, and then they go to wherever this like shark is being housed, and it's just them two. And literally Hooper gets on his hands and knees and starts to open the stomach of this beast. And he reveals no human remains. And this kind of just confirms like his suspicion that this is not the shark that actually attacked those 2 victims and that this just happened to be one in the water.
Can we make note of what they pull out of him? It's a fucking license plate.
Yeah, he says that tiger sharks are notoriously like garbage cans. And he said, and the license plate that they pull out is actually from Louisiana, which is way down south. And so they kind of concur that this shark was probably somewhere in the Gulf and in those waters and then made its way up.
I'm also a garbage can.
You are tiger shark.
I am a tiger shark. And something notable, like when Hooper cuts open the shark, it looks like milk that's pouring out of him. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty and it probably smells so gross.
Well, and he reacts like it smells so gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nasty. Yeah, nasty. Brody's like, we need to close this beach. We got to get this done. And Hooper now is like, okay, we got to find this shark. And Brody is like, well, I'm not really drunk enough to go right now in the middle of the night to go on a boat with you. And Hooper's like, dude, we have to go. We need to find this shark because he is in his like prime feeding time essentially right now. And we got to go find him. This is like our best shot. Let's go.
And I love that tenacity. That's great. Like, let's go after it. Let's get this shit done. And on this little venture, Brody is getting like deep with conversation. And then Hooper's like, cool, sweet. Do you want a pretzel?
And I love that Brody also has a wine bottle in his hand.
I love it.
Like, as all this is happening.
And then they start to talk about their lives. And Brody is like, bro, you're rich. What is life?
Yeah, they're kind of going back and forth having this like fun banter.
C'est la vie. Wisdom.
Well, and I love that they're both drunk and just like doing this because it totally reminds me of you and me. Like, we would totally do this.
This would be us, yes.
And then Hooper actually has a lot of like fancy equipment with him too. And he has this like sonar gadget and he says that it's supposed to indicate like fish, and it starts beeping pretty rapidly, indicating that they like might have found something. And they kind of go off into the direction of where this like is coming from. And they actually do end up finding a boat abandoned and pretty severely damaged. And Brody knows like immediately that boat belongs to a local fisherman named Ben Gardner.
And fucking Hooper is like, yo, I'm going to check that out.
He changes into a wetsuit
So
and
fast.
fins so incredibly fast. It happens so fast. And they actually find like a pretty intense bite mark on the side of the boat, which I think is kind of what indicated to Hooper in the first place that this might be something that he wanted to like investigate. And he suits up, and honestly, that's a hell no for me, dog.
It's a hell no for me too. Like, absolutely not. I would not even be in this boat in general. I would probably not be anywhere near the water.
I feel like you belong in a dry state that has no bodies of water. Landlocked.
I think I belong in a water-bound state.
In a water slide.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I feel like I belong by the water. I just am not going to go in because I grew up in California.
Fair enough. And then Hooper, actually, while he's down there, he ends up finding a huge tooth on the side of the bite mark of the boat, like underwater.
How the fuck can he breathe underwater for that long?
He's a waterman.
Woodman?
A seaman.
A woodman?
A seaman.
Okay, stop saying that.
A seaman.
Stop
Allie.
saying that.
Anyways, and as he's like kind of investigating this tooth in like a hole in the side of the boat, a head pops up, a dead head, not a live one. And it has a missing eyeball. And this is presumably Ben's head. And Hooper freaks the fuck out.
So I have a couple notes here. This movie probably led me to my main fear, not main fear, motorhomes are the first. And then submechanophobia would maybe be second. And that's a fear of man-made objects submerged underwater. So a boat would constitute that. This scene still haunts me to my core because it's like a shipwreck underwater and then a fucking head floats up. And then the sound they add to that, like why do that scene like that? That's fucking terrifying.
Well, and Allie, did you know that this scene specifically was originally not scripted, but Steven Spielberg said that he got really greedy after seeing the preview audience's reaction to the scene where this shark jumps out behind Brody's head later on in the film, and he wanted one more scare.
I mean, it worked.
It got her. The next day, Brody and Hooper are trying to warn the mayor of what they've like just found, and that this is like likely from Hooper's deduction, his deductive reasoning, that this is a great white shark and it's going to continue potentially to feed because that's what they do. Is they are, I think it's called territoriality or something like that, where they're going to keep feeding until there's no more food. So you're just putting food out there by having all these people just swimming.
Let's bring the dude to a Chili's.
Right? Well, then he also says, because unfortunately, Hooper did drop the tooth when he got scared by the head in the water. And so even though he tells the mayor, like, hey, I saw this huge tooth, they don't have it for actual proof to back up their claims.
I'm also like, why are we calling this shark a dude?
What if it's a chick?
What if it's a chick?
What if it's a spooky chick? And then like Brody and Hooper are just like trying to communicate the severity of the problem. And they're like, this thing is like an eating machine.
While the mayor is talking to them, it's kind of like an iconic scene. Like they're walking by that billboard that we talked about a little bit earlier, and it's been vandalized at this point. And it literally says like Amity 4th of July, regatta. And it's kind of alluding to like, we still need this.
And then the mayor says that they are going to stay open for the 4th of July and that there's really nothing that they can do about it. In the town, we see like hundreds of tourists kind of like arriving by ferry, and they're definitely here to like enjoy the holiday. And Brody and Hooper are trying their best to also try to find like help to get this shark captured and killed, because all of these people, way more than even their usual town like population, is going to be festing the waters for the holiday. And it's just going to be like a massacre if they don't do something.
Literally, it looks kind of lit, this celebration. I would definitely be here for it because I love fireworks and hot dogs and sparklers and red, white, and blue.
I just want a hot dog real bad.
Real bad.
Well, and then they get some additional deputies to kind of help patrol the water, but nobody's like still finding the shark, right, to this day. To this hour. It hasn't been that long of time. But as hundreds of people are on the sand, they're kind of like not really getting in the water. And the mayor is sort of walking around like, this is kind of weird. And he goes up to like one of the beachgoers that I assume that he knows. And him and his family are just sitting on the beach. And he's like, why aren't you guys getting in the water? Like, you should get in. And so it seems like a grandma, grandpa, and then a few of their grandkids end up kind of starting the trend of getting in the water. And then everybody really starts to like get in after that.
He's legit gaslighting this family to get into the water for like tourism and PR and stuff. And I'm like, dude, this is the worst look for you ever. But also, are you a bright proxy serial killer?
Ooh, oh my God. Scary. He might be.
I mean,
shoot. As like, you know, all these people are now starting to go in the water, Brody actually pulls his son Michael aside as he's about to go out on the water with some friends in a boat and asks him, he's like, hey, can you and your friends please just go in like the pond with your boat instead of like going out into like the actual ocean? And I think the pond is almost like a little bay maybe kind of area.
I think one of them mentions that like that's where the old ladies go. And I'm like, oh my God, you can find me there.
Yeah, that's actually like where we want to be.
Like, sweet. Also, the mayor's he's on the news and he is being like, allegedly people got hurt in our little ocean here. And I'm like, allegedly, bro?
Yeah, he is something fucking else, let me tell you.
Let's not reelect him, okay? Oh, and something I read that amity means friendship. Our mayor is not being a friend to his town.
He's not being a friend of the people.
No.
He's really not.
No.
Well, and we also get this like great shot at this time as well. It kind of like turns and we have this great shot of everyone's legs kind of dangling underwater, almost like it's in like the shark's perspective, which I love. And as everyone's like swimming, the mayor, again, back on the news, is like saying that they've caught and killed the shark. And as this is all happening, a woman thinks that she spots a shark fin swimming through all of the people. Everyone's freaking out. The lifeguard blows his whistle, tells everyone to get out of the water, and everyone like frantically gets out.
It's literally like the Titanic scene where they've all been dumped into the dumped. That's a wrong word. But they're all in the water and they're all like, oh, freaking the fuck out. And that's what this is like here. Everybody's freaking out. And I'm like, people, you're in very shallow water. Just please get out. So
100%.
We can move forward.
Well, and Ellen yells for Michael, her son. And then we see that some kids have actually been caught and they were swimming with a fake shark fin that they put together with cardboard, trying to trick everyone.
These fucking asshats. Why?
It's literally so fucking sad.
It's like
because it even got me because I've seen this movie so many times, but I forgot that they like did this, and I was like, oh God damn it, these kids.
But it's also like in Scream where they're like this stupid asshats.
Oh my God, yeah, that wear like the ghost face stuff, Ugh, so dumb. Well, and as this happens though, there's another woman who's on the shore, kind of part like near the pond part, and she actually sees a real fin in the pond area. And as this is happening, Michael and his friends are like on a boat, and a man in another small boat kind of tries to like swim near them, and he's sort of like trying to check on them and is like, are you boys okay? And he gets knocked off by the shark and grabbed in this like epic underwater scene where the shark has his open mouth as he like bites into the man's legs.
You say epic, I say hokey.
I loved it.
Okay.
I just loved that it was like a bird's eye view, like top down shot, and you just see the shark under the water. Like, that's what I loved about it.
Love it. And we also see like the dude's literal, like from calf down limb sink to the bottom of the seafloor.
He's got nice calves.
Oh my gosh. He must be doing his calf day.
I think he is. He's doing leg day.
But don't body parts rise to this?
Depends. Probably just depends.
Okay.
Yeah, but good question.
Yeah.
Well, and then luckily, Michael and his friends, even though they kind of like fall into the water with like all of this happening, and Michael did witness the entire attack with the guy like next to him, he is pulled out of the water and he is safe, but he is clearly in shock from witnessing like what he saw.
After Michael's rescued, we see Brody go into daddy mode, hot daddy mode, mind you. And he looks out into the ocean. He's like, fuck this shit. And he's got conviction, and he's like, fuck this large fish. He's got tenacity in his brain.
He's getting that fish.
Yes. Ew, wait.
Oh, God. Well, so then anyways, the Brody family takes Michael to the hospital. He ends up being okay, but like the whole family is like visibly shook. And the mayor actually is at the hospital, and he kind of like apologizes to Brody. Thank God, frickin' finally, he has some remorse, like now that Brody's son literally almost died. And Brody is like, I need you to give me a pen right now because you are going to sign this paperwork to authorize me to hire a contractor to kill this shark. And he says, you're the mayor of Shark City, which I love that line, like really calling him out on it.
He's for sure calling him out. And then the mayor is like, dude, my kids were on that beach too. And I'm like, that makes it even worse, bro.
Yeah, like then please sign this piece of paper, you
like,
piece of shit.
You're not winning Best Dad Award right now.
You are not, brother. You are not.
Worst Mayor Award actually signs the papers, and we get a contractor to come in and help.
And guess who we get? We get Mr. Quint. And Quint, Brody, and Hooper, they all kind of meet together, and they're going to hunt down this fish together.
I loved that they kind of meet at his shanty. I don't know why I keep calling it a shanty.
What is a shanty?
I don't really know, but okay, it's a sea shanty. And he's drinking his own homemade alcohol, and Brody and Hooper are like, sketch, but like, okay, we'll drink this with you.
I mean, honestly, I probably would too.
No, like, I'm first to die or do whatever.
Well, and then Quint tells Brody all of his demands. He's like, basically kind of like, he's got one of those checklists that like superstars have when they are going to a venue. I need to have green M&Ms.
It's called a rider.
A rider. Yeah. So he's basically got one of those and is like, I need all these different things to catch the shark. And it's funny because like tensions kind of start to arise a little bit between these guys before anything has even happened, just because they definitely come from like differing backgrounds and they have different like approaches of how to get this shark. And Quint and Hooper specifically have kind of this like budding, like territorial energy between them, lots of testosterone, because I think each of them thinks that they know the right thing to do to like get this shark. And so they're trying to like come together almost to compromise.
I don't think, yes, but like, I think just Quint has the natural instinct, whereas Hooper has the brains and he went to college. So Quint is judging Hooper for going to college. Like he has I noticed he said you have city hands or something.
Oh,
like
yeah.
that.
He grabs his hands and is like, I think he's trying to look for like rough seaman's hands, but he's like, nope, you're like a little city boy.
Yeah.
Well, and they decide to all kind of move forward. They load all of the equipment onto Quint's boat. And one of the items is actually an anti-shark cage that Hooper brought.
Which is smart because that'll come in handy soon. But when Quint sees that, he's like, okay. And he starts singing a song about basically how, well, Hooper die. So Brody's wife is clearly not happy about any of this happening. Duh. She still lets him go off and out into the sea. And I just love Quint's spirit here. And he's just like singing and doing all the weird shit he says or sings or drinking. And he's just like, let's go, bitches.
Well, and I'm going to save you guys me singing it again. But if you listen to the beginning of the episode, Quint says this little song basically in response to Ellen seeing Brody off. So that was kind of funny to me. And a fun fact I actually have about Quint's boat is that his boat being named Orca was actually very intentional. And because he's a shark hunter by profession, he knows that orcas, traditionally known as killer whales, are actually the only known predator of the great white, which we're going to find out a little bit more about in just a little bit.
Yeah, we are.
And while they're on the water and kind of getting things started, Quint has Brody starting chumming. And Hooper is clearly kind of judging Quint because Quint is also drinking on the job, which I don't know, let the man do what he needs to do. He's the professional, I guess, here. Another thing in this scene too that I think is kind of funny is that Brody is clearly out of place, especially not having a lot of experience at sea / fearing the sea pretty greatly.
And Hooper is being kind of mean to Brody about his like unhandiness, and Quint is like, don't worry, dude, like just ask me whatever you need and I'll like guide you through whatever we can do.
I love that.
I know, camaraderie.
We love a homie.
Yeah.
And then as they're kind of like starting to now like go into the middle of the ocean, they're really like getting pretty far from shore. Quint starts to actually get a tug on his fishing line. And he carefully and very slowly, meticulously gets himself in place. So he feels the tug at first, and then he slowly starts to grab like these little things that kind of reinforce him so that his pole doesn't go flying or he doesn't go flying. And I love this part because he just seems like such a pro. Like he's done this so many times.
And Brody is like, Quint, you're either very smart or very dumb. And I'm like, girl, why can't we be both?
You know, there might be a middle. There might be a middle.
We can be both.
Well, and Hooper basically does not think that it's actually the shark that's on the line. And it actually does end up not being anything notable, not the shark. But Quint warns that he's like, well, these are things I try to do because I'm trying to like get him to come to the surface so that I can stick him, is what he says.
And Hooper does think it might be like a stingray or something. And I'm like, bitch, what if it breaks a line? Like, what are we trying to catch? Like, why are you trying to catch a shark with a line?
Yeah, with a fishing pole.
Yeah.
Well, and Quint makes Brody add more chum in the water. And while he's chumming, he's almost kind of like he's throwing the chum and then he's like looking back at the guys, kind of like he's done this now a little bit and he's just kind of doing it without really paying attention to the water. And this is where we get the first real view of Bruce the shark, because the shark kind of bursts his head through the surface of the water, takes some of the chum, and he surfaces, giving Brody a glimpse of his massive size. And Brody starts to kind of back up into the boat. Like he's in shock at what he just saw. And in my head, I'm just like, there's Brucey.
I'm also like, the animatronic is so animatronic. No, just
it's
me?
animatronicking.
Yeah. Just me? No? Okay.
Well, and fun fact too about the name Bruce. I know we talked a little bit about how it like inspired Nemo, like the shark in Nemo, but Steven Spielberg actually named the shark Bruce after his lawyer, allegedly, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And Brody, like I said, is clearly shocked, and he utters the famous line, "You're going to need a bigger boat." And apparently this entire line was actually ad-libbed by Roy Scheider, which I thought was amazing because, I mean, how often is that line still used to this day in so many different ways? It's awesome. And then they watch the shark actually swim towards their boat and kind of like swims around, and they're really able to get like a good view of it. And Quint estimates that this shark has to be over 25 feet long and at least like 3 tons.
Quint grabs a spear gun and calls for Hooper, and he attaches a tracker to one of the barrels, like those yellow barrels that you see in this movie, and they successfully shoot him. So they attach a barrel to him with a tracker. And I'm like, during this entire scene, Hooper's kind of focused on like getting a good photo, and I'm like, girl, Sam.
I know he's like, I'm trying to get a picture of this, like, and he asks Brody to like be close to like the bow of the boat, the front of the boat, whatever. And he's like, I need something in the foreground so that we can really see the scale of the size. And Brody's like, hell no, I'm not getting up there.
I also thought like maybe all 3 of their personalities are so different. I'm like, they must be different Enneagrams for sure.
Oh, yeah, they probably are.
Yeah.
I don't know what mine is, but they definitely are.
But like, there's too many fucking cooks in the kitchen, and they're all like not working well together. But they do end up eventually working well together.
Yeah, they do be working well together eventually. But
different Enneagrams.
The shark actually ends up pulling the barrel down underwater, and they decide to see if they can wait to see it surface again. And one cool thing actually that the producer told me while we were watching this is that There was actually a Mythbusters episode on this to see if a great white or sharks in general really are strong enough to be able to pull like a barrel like that underwater. And apparently they are.
Dude, really?
Yeah.
For how long
Right?
though?
I don't know for how long, but apparently they have the force, the max, the capacity to like do that, which is kind of crazy.
I'll get into that more later. But we see this epic shot of what I call Quint enjoying his last sunset that we know of, because spoilers, you already know about that. And Hooper is steering the boat, but Quint is just enjoying his sunset.
Just having a grand old time.
After that kind of rough encounter, they're pretty casual and like in the hole by the kitchen, drinking the booze, and they're kind of having like a boozy time. It sounds like a little fun guy party. And Quint starts to talk about his past, and he starts to reveal some of his scars.
Yeah, Hooper shows like one of his scars from like a moray eel, and then Quint is like showing a scar that he got, and they kind of like go back and forth.
And they're like drunk, like going back and forth with their scars, like putting limbs on each other, just like, here's my scar, blah. Here's my scar, blah. They're like, let's drink to our legs. And I'm just like, that's so cute. But Brody's not into it.
Well, and then Brody like kind of notices a scar on Quint that's on his arm, and he's like, well, what is that? And Quint is like, oh, it's a tattoo that I got removed. And they obviously ask like what it was. And he says, oh, just the USS Indianapolis. And this kind of shuts like Hooper's laughing up like real fast. And he talks about how while he was on this ship, there was a sub that slammed 2 torpedoes into the ship. And there were like 1,100 men that were basically like dumped into the ocean. And while he was there, the first shark that he saw was a 13-foot tiger shark. And during the time that this all was happening, he basically witnessed a lot of his friends get eaten by sharks / maybe drown. And out of 1,100 men that went into the water, only 316 came out.
So I'm not going to lie, this was a pretty long scene, but I think that the point was to let us know that that's why Quint is so fascinated by sharks.
100%. And kind of how he's almost like dedicated his life to being like a shark fisherman after this.
And this is kind of a tension point. Like everybody's kind of listening to him, and we're getting
intense.
It's intense. And then we start to hear something, and it happens to be a whale singing to cut that tension.
Also reminds me of Nemo.
Aww.
And we get right after this a really great shot of the water with the barrel kind of bobbing up to the top. And this is all happening like as the guys are in the cabin.
Honestly, this looks like my kind of time, but can we just do it on land, please?
Right?
Please?
Well, and the ship definitely gets, I don't want to say like attacked by the shark, but bumped by the shark or something, because parts of the ship start like breaking, but we don't see like what's doing it exactly. I don't know. I think that more intense attack obviously comes later.
It's being fully attacked by a shark. Also, like, how does a shark know how to attack a boat?
Okay, that's true. Okay. Well, and then Quint actually starts shooting at it. And then after doing that for a little bit, things actually end up going quiet.
Which is kind of weird and very ominous. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but during this scene, there are 2 little like shooting stars or some things. Did you notice that, Emma?
I didn't notice, but I did read a fun fact about it.
Okay, you tell me, because my thought process is like, is this a little cameo to E.T.? Because like they're little shooting stars, but what?
It came out after this, so probably not.
Well, there are 2 very fake looking shooting stars, and we see them both pretty close together. And I was just like, what is that about?
I actually read in the fun facts that it was a rumor for a very long time that they were real. And then someone later on had pointed out that they actually were added in post, which makes me sad.
They're no fucking shit added in post. They look so fucking fake.
Well, I guess people for a while thought they were real.
God, I wish I had that like tenacity.
Let's just pretend that they're real.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, Quint is trying to make some repairs to the boat from the damage that happened the night before. And they actually see the barrel rise up again. And they're kind of like trying to grab the rope to like sort of bring it closer, which I didn't really fully understand. But I mean, sure, grab the rope. And Quint kind of warns Hooper, like, be careful because that rope will slide right through your hands and like really fuck you up. But as this is happening, the shark actually kind of breaches the surface again, and they get a really great glimpse of Bruce yet again.
I have a couple notes.
Okay.
The shark was puncturing the boat with his nose, and it was causing maybe potential flooding in the hull of the boat. Wouldn't have capsized?
It's a great question. I can't tell you for sure.
Thank you.
I'm not a boat expert, but if anyone is, let us know.
Thank you. Also, our lovely king shark, who's attached to now like barrels, how does he survive down there being attached to those barrels?
I mean, let's ask the Mythbusters. I honestly really want to watch that episode now that the producer brought that up, because I think like, that sounds like I would be very interested to find out.
I'm like, that's buoyancy, bitch. You'll get brought right back up.
That's very true. Very true. And animatronics be animatronicking.
Honestly, this whole movie, yes.
Bruce is looking great. And when they see the shark again, Brody immediately goes to the phone that they have on the vessel. And he is trying to call someone to kind of like get some extra help. He's like, can someone connect me to the Coast Guard, whatever? And Quint grabs a baseball bat that he has in the boat and he beats the shit out of the phone with the bat. And you can just tell that he does not want anyone else to be involved in this. And he wants to be the only one to kill the shark.
He has a vendetta. And I'm like, this is toxic, but so am I. So like, that's fine.
You're like, I kind of love this.
Yeah.
And then Quint ends up hitting the shark with another spear and barrel. And they are actually now at this point trying to follow the shark like as fast as they can. And I love this part because now several times we've seen Brody just like witnessing Quint doing his thing and even Hooper doing some stuff. And Brody kind of looks at them with like a kid smile, just admiring what they're doing and just watching them work. And it's such a cute, like innocent moment because Brody just doesn't have a lot of sea experience, but it also just is a weird time with what they're up against.
I'm with you there, but like he should bring that confidence into his workplace, like totally as a sheriff.
Yeah.
You know?
100%. Well, and then the shark actually ends up swimming next to the boat and Brody actually tries to shoot at him with his pistol. And Hooper and Brody end up attaching the barrels to the boat cleats at the back of the boat. And the shark kind of starts to drag the boat a little bit and eating the line that's attached to them. And Quint has to come in with this like machete that he has to cut the rope so that they can stop being dragged. And then the shark actually rams the boat and the guys start panicking a bit because they're taking on now way more water and the engine is like really getting overheated and like messed up at this point.
This scene is just like literal pure chaos, which is my life. So like I get it. But the shark is literally negging and taunting them in the boat. And I'm just like, you guys, this is a toxic relationship.
Something's got to give. Okay. Yeah. And then we actually see the shark now has 3 barrels attached to him. And it's essentially chasing them. And they're trying to now at this point kind of lure it back to land to quote unquote maybe drown him. So they've like kind of drastically changed their plans now. And they're like, let's just try to make it back towards shore.
Why are we allowed to drown sharks? This is like Game of Thrones of fucking
I know.
East Coast rich living.
It really is. Well, and then the boat starts to take on even more water and actually eventually breaks down. Quint also doesn't really help in this instance because he's trying to like make the boat go as fast as possible while it's having engine problems. But anyway, besides the point, the boat is obviously experiencing some difficulties and Quint is like, let me just handle it and like I will deal with it.
They start to set up the cage that Hooper has brought aboard to go down into the ocean. And I'm like, fuck that. And he wants to inject the shark with the poison spear.
Hooper gets lowered down by the guys and he's in the cage and he's got the spear and the shark actually comes right towards him. And it has the famous score playing in the background. So we get to hear that again. And the shark actually ends up barging into the cage and it sort of scares Hooper because it comes at him from like behind. And of course, he drops the poison spear. Hooper be dropping shit. Is all I have to say.
Oh my God. He be real fast, but he also be dropping shit.
And this like underwater scene is so terrifying because the shark is very easily causing some parts of the bars of this cage to basically come apart. And he's like gonna get Hooper is like what I kept thinking in my head.
But like, why? Why do this to yourself, bro?
Right? I know. Well, and then Hooper narrowly escapes the cage as the shark attacks it. And we see him kind of like hide behind some coral. So he actually swims down instead of up back to the boat. And he kind of like tries to stay underwater and sort of like out of the way. And then the other guys actually end up bringing the cage back up. They find that Hooper is not there. And you can tell that they're kind of thinking like, oh shit. And they see how like fucked up the cage is too. And I think that they're just like kind of thinking the worst.
And this is a wild scene. We think that maybe Hooper has died in the cage down underwater. And then the shark literally ends up jumping onto the back of the boat. And Quint basically slides down into the mouth of the shark. And we see him like thrash around and he's coughing up blood. And he's basically taking him to the water. And I'm like, oh.
It's like a really heavy scene. It kind of reminds me of the same feeling that you get in Jurassic World, where like the nanny gets eaten and you're like, why? Even though Quint is a main character, watching him die so brutally when you're like totally rooting for him, it's just really fucking sad. And like, it's also kind of sad and honestly, in my opinion, kind of lame the way that he dies. Like he just slides into that shark's mouth. Poor guy can't get a grip on anything to try to like, just the way that the gravity is working is basically what has made this shark win in this instance, which I kind of hate.
Can I say one thing?
Please.
Do you think maybe this is how he would have wanted to go?
I think if he was going to go, it's going to be this shark.
Yes.
But I think it's just the way that he died that I'm like, oh man, wish it was a little bit more of a fight. Like I wanted to see more.
He just
out of
literally
Quint.
slid into
he
his
literally
fucking
slid
mouth.
into his mouth, you know? Like I wish there was a little bit more like Quint like riding him like a motherfucking bull. You know what I mean? And
That'd be
like
fun.
thrashing through the water. And then like eventually like maybe the shark bucks him off and then he flies into the water and then into the shark's mouth.
I think
that would have been epic.
I think you're thinking about Sharknado, not Jaws.
Maybe. Okay, moving on. And yeah, as the shark like tries to come back to the boat for Brody, we actually see Brody and he's thinking on his toes, which is great. And Brody actually puts a compressed air tank into the mouth of the shark and the shark ends up swimming away.
I was also like, how did he come back to the surface so fast? He's not done nomming on Quint. That's a body. That's a full ass body, no?
Oh, I think he just ate that guy so quick.
Damn.
Me and the producer were actually talking about like everything in this film is so slow in comparison to how sharks actually are. Even just like how this great white was moving and stuff, like pretty slow compared to what they actually do when they're like attacking.
It's like me eating Taco Bell.
Yes, very slowly.
Got it.
But enjoying every moment.
Yes. Liv Moss.
Liv Moss. And then Brody actually makes his way onto the top of the boat for safety because, like Ali said, the boat is like capsizing. And he tries actually stabbing the shark repeatedly in the head with a spear. That obviously doesn't work. And then Brody is able to shoot at it. And he says, "Smile, you son of a," as he shoots it in the mouth and right at the air tank, causing the shark to fully explode from the tank explosion.
And after this explosion, Brody goes, "Ah!" And it's kind of an iconic scene. Like,
it's like visceral,
go daddy. But also, again, it's raining shark guts, but don't shark guts float? We have a scene of them going down. It's a movie.
It's a movie and a question for a scientist. If we know any scientists out there that listen, please let us know. Yeah, and I mean, it is absolutely raining shark guts. And the happiness on his face is just he's so happy. And even better, Hooper ends up surfacing and reuniting with Brody as they kind of celebrate the shark being dead. It is very sad because they do acknowledge for a second that Quint did not make it. But they're like, okay, the bigger fish that we had to fry is fried.
Okay. Good quote. And that is sad, but Brody and Hooper are being like, all right, how the fuck do we get back to shore and how do we save ourselves? They're like, let's take these barrels and float ourselves back to shore on these. And I'm like, would that work, A? Do you think that would work?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I also think they were much closer to the shore than I thought they would be. If you look at the
Than they are, you mean?
Yeah, if you look at the visual shot, they're like not that far away from shore.
It's a movie. I think that's, yeah.
But why is nobody trying to help them if they see this?
Oh, good question. Good. Maybe they do. We just don't see it.
Okay.
Well, and then I love this like last part because Hooper and Brody are paddling back to shore and Brody says, you know, I used to hate the water. And then Hooper says, I can't imagine why. And so they still have like this lightheartedness. And then that's the movie.
That's it.
That is the movie Sharks and Minnows. I was trying to say like the equivalent of like Ladies and Gentlemen, but I don't know if that worked. Allie, what were some of your final thoughts that you had about this film?
This movie could have been an email. Just me personally, it's too long for the content that it has in it, but I get it. And it set the tone and movement for so many different horror films and like, so not even horror films, just like a lot of different films. So I appreciate it, but like this could have been an email. It was 2 hours, man.
It was pretty long, but I do think that I totally agree with you. It really set the tone for like a new type of horror. And I love those films that had to do with like creatures, like so to speak. Like I think I brought it up in our very, very first episode because there was like a made for TV like film that was like on sci-fi back in the day called Creature that starred Craig T. Nelson. And it basically was a shark that could make it on land. And so like how scary would that be? That actually would be terrifying.
That's actually terrifying. And I hate that our daddy, Craig T. Nelson, is like in that. But
I mean, he was the hero, but
that's right.
You know, and it reminds me of all those other films too. Like I used to watch with my dad, like Man versus Anaconda or like Man versus Piranha and like even Piranha, all those movies basically where it's like the focus is on like a creature, even like Lake Placid.
Oh
like,
gosh.
I just love, there was like such an era and I feel like films like Jaws and anything that came after just like kind of kept that genre like growing and growing. And like I really loved that it inspired all of that.
No, and I totally agree with you. And this like was Spielberg's like first real just like bright light
summer blockbuster.
Yeah. Yes, the summer blockbuster. Also, this movie, this was in 75. This was released in 75. I watched this maybe in 1995 or 1990 something.
Like 20 odd years later.
So many years later, and it still fucked me right up.
And it's going to celebrate its 40-year anniversary next year, and it still holds up.
It terrified. I am so afraid of water because of this film, and my parents know that.
50-year anniversary. Oh my goodness. That's what happens when I have too much twisted tea. Get really bad at math.
But so it literally just ingrained fear into me about the ocean.
100%.
And
absolutely.
My submechanophobia.
Well, so Allie, did you think that this movie was scary?
I mean, yeah, because I'm permanently scared about the ocean. But other than that, like, no. Did you?
Yes. I'm scared of big sharks, man. That's all I gotta say. I'm gonna leave it at that. I mean, and it's so funny too, because like I used to surf and I mean, I love the ocean even to this day. And when I'm in the water, weirdly, I don't really ever think about sharks, but it's when I'm out that I get like really scared of them. So I guess that's a good thing that I'm not like scared when I'm in the water. But anyways.
Again, I was kind of rooting for the shark. I really was.
I could see that for you.
He was just doing his thing.
Well, and Els, what was your favorite scene?
I think probably when I don't know if you clocked this, but when Richard Dreyfuss was making faces at Quint.
Yes. We didn't mention that in the pod, but if you guys have seen this film, he gets really frustrated at Quint and then makes these like funny faces behind his back.
He's like pulling his, like how Jack Skellington pulls his mouth and just like
sticking his tongue out and stuff. I love that.
Yeah. I just love anything with Richard Dreyfuss in this film. I'm like, yeah, I'm attracted to you and I think you're funny.
I'm attracted to you.
So all of that. What was yours?
I think my favorite scene, so I have two. One of them was Quint's story in the boat, because like I think that really sets the tone for like just he's a hardcore fucking dude. And then I think I love the end when Brody's like, smile, you son of a bitch, because we finally see this man have some like balls and confidence to like blow this fish up. And then it's like raining fish, like like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
I called it a volcano of fish.
I love that.
Or like a volcano of like gut.
Of volcano gut.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to think on that one a little bit.
It sounds
more.
like what we'd experience at Rainforest Cafe.
Maybe they could add that in as an experience.
Yeah.
I'd pay for it. We love Rainforest Cafe. But anyways, guys, that was Jaws. We hope that you enjoyed it. And as a reminder, if you guys love the podcast, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Spooky Chicks and Horror Flicks. We also have a Patreon if you want to support the podcast and get a couple extra benefits there. And if you would be so kind to leave us a 5-star rating at wherever you listen, we would be eternally grateful. And Allie, you want to close up shop?
I shall. I shanty.
Hi, Shanti.
Thank you guys again, and happy 4th of July. We're going to need a bigger fucking boat, and stay spooky fuckers.